Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the Architecture of Health. Quick video for a change on a topic that is really all about the name of this podcast, the Architecture of Health, alluding to structures that have an inside and an outside, along with a thoughtful process for designing health. One of potentially the most destructive, widespread misunderstandings about health is around the topic of Louis Pasteur. The first thing, if you get into a conversation with someone about emergency medicine, they'll say, but antibiotics have saved millions of people. And yes, that is true. What they're referring to is from the background of germ theory, which Pasteur was the innovator in researching and advocating this point of view, this sort of war-based point of view about germs and specific microbes causing fermentation and poor health. Now, I'm not saying that's untrue. What I will say is it's even more shocking that when you bring up his contemporary, who was Antoine Béchamp, I don't even know if I said that correctly, but a contemporary of his had terrain theory, saying that if you created an environment for harmful organisms that helps them spread, you'll get sicker. If you create an environment, an internal environment that repels those or doesn't need those organisms, you'll be more healthy. The interesting thing is, only when I had an earnest desire to resolve a problem that the germ theory could not address, that the emergency medical system could not address, did I even ever hear of this guy. And I was years in. Going off the trail, not just blindly following vaccine science, not just blindly accepting that widespread use of antibiotics or even Tylenol was a good thing. So I was already pretty far along and I had never heard of this guy. So we're just going to take a few minutes with this short episode to talk about sort of what happened here. So there's a book on Amazon called, it's Béchamp, I guess. Bechamp. Béchamp or Pasteur. I just ordered it on my Kindle for $5 by, let's see, what's her name? Ethel Hume. Oh, it was originally published in 1923. And then there were updates to it in the 40s. And most recently, this update was released in 2011. This book contends that Pasteur was a fraudster, a scoundrel who faked a lot of his research. Now, I haven't read the whole book yet. I'm going to have to see how well substantiating these claims are. But I do know there was definitely a campaign to highlight his work instead of Béchamp. Why on earth wouldn't both points of view be prominent? Well, one is much more profitable. It's a lot easier to sell a specific thing and this war-based mentality, like you go in here, you just kill this thing, you got this one thing, you can mass produce it, it's a petrochemical. The medical schools can design curriculum around this patented medicine versus Béchamp, who's saying it's environment. There's a lot of, not even just so that it's only environment, but that the environment has a huge impact on our overall health. So it's kind of like pretending that the inside of a house doesn't exist. Like you just, how nice a house is just depends upon the painting on the outside. Maybe, honestly, that's not that great of an analogy, but the point being, I was recently talking to a friend who had gotten, the COVID vaccine out of desire to be a healthy member of the collective. And she really didn't understand why anybody wouldn't get it. And that surprised me because I'd looked through so much of the data, raw data from the CDC. I'd looked at the data from the mortuaries. I didn't just accept the corporate pharmaceutical media's, the legacy media point of view about that whole situation. And then I was like, well, I just described what a lot of us who were really deep in the trenches of long-term, lasting health longevity research outside of the, white coat ivory halls, outside of the trillionaire, billionaire controlled narrative. And we were passing around memes that showed, there was a fish bowl and there were a bunch of fish in the bowl and the water was dirty. And it said, if a lot of these fish were getting sick, would you give them a vaccine or would you clean the water? So, the truth be told, there's something here for everyone. Yes, when I've had life-threatening things, I've used very targeted antibiotic protocols. And right away, I've had to rebuild my ecology because that is like a forest fire. That is burning away a lot of your positive helper. We've all heard about probiotics, guys. We know about that. And yet, oh gosh, I got to share this with you. One of the funniest things is, and yet we have that snake oil aspect of things being marketed that totally don't work. Even natural things being marketed that totally don't work. Most probiotics actually don't survive stomach acid. Very few of them do. One of them that does, that was life-changing and in some cases reversed all the symptoms of celiac disease. There's a PubMed study on that. You could look it up yourself. Saccharomyces boulardii. Saccharomyces boulardii, the interesting thing is I recently learned from a shaman friend is that in the indigenous cultures, the outside of the fruit skin has this unique bacteria. They kind of just shake some of it off. I don't know if it's a mold or whatever, but they shake some of it off into a fruit paste. And then they let that fruit paste ferment with that culture. And then after fasting, they take that fruit paste. So basically, they're doing a super concentrated, large dose of Saccharomyces boulardii and probably other strains as well. And when you put that probiotic in a culture like a fruit paste, you're getting more than you could buy in a single pill, right? So the cool thing is I just went and got some applesauce. I took my fabulous Saccharomyces boulardii, cracked the capsule into my applesauce, and now I have these like mega doses I take. I let it ferment and I take these mega doses of Saccharomyces boulardii. So why Saccharomyces boulardii, Deb? One, it passes the through, it's resilient enough to get through the stomach acid. Two, it actually eats yeast. So when you have too many antibiotics and you get these fungal overgrowths and yeasty overgrowths that can really go deep, can have very deep roots. One of your best friends is something, that takes a little bit of that away. Now everyone needs to be cautious with this one. Someone who's way overgrown with yeast, like my son was, we had to go down to like a part of a capsule to build up gradually his system so that the dead yeast and everything could fall away. So why did I say that? This is a very Béchamp point of view of an ecology of our body. This is not a Pasteurian point of view. I'm not sure even how many strains of yeast are. It's kind of like looking at a wild garden. We don't even know how many different plants are contributing to that overall ecology. But we do know that if you set that thing on fire and everything burnt down, you'd have to do a lot more work to bring back the good guys. So why did I say all that? So now modern medicine, I'm so glad I've had great doctors who were really cautious about antibiotics. But guys, our food in industrialized cultures, and probably the others as well, right? Our food is being bathed in antibiotics. Roundup, glyphosate. It's an antibiotic. It kills off, and all the other kind of pesticides that are killing something so that we get the good thing. And whatever is bad for whatever's bad for the insects eating the plants is could be very bad for us. And I don't know if you know this, guys, but a lot of the pesticides, they only started using a lot of them in the United States after the world wars because they had extra chemical biological warfare weapons. They had this extra poison. They're like, what do we do? I guess we better eat it. So guys, I'm I'm and I'm in full gratitude of having cautious antibiotics. I'm in full gratitude of having, most of all, the access to all this fantastic information because it takes brave people and generous people donating time and energy and money to replace the false narratives that leave us in a war mindset, leave us scared, like we don't have very many options. So this book called Bechamp or Pasteur, two French dudes, I'm going to read it. $5 on Kindle. What does it say here? It details some of the reasons for the rancorous relationship between them. And guys, I heard, but I can't verify, of course, that Pasteur on his deathbed admitted Béchamp was right. Béchamp was right. I think there's definitely more ability to feel empowered when we think about growing our own gardens than worrying about whether our friend is going to sneeze. You know, I think it's a more empowering narrative. It's scary, though. How do you grow a glorious garden in the middle of a culture that thinks poison is food? We're all working on this together. And this crazy quilt garden of information that's coming through podcasts, we're getting the antibiotics out of our information, guys. So let's see the chapters. The prior history of germ theory, fermentation, the microzymes or little bodies. Maybe they're talking about viruses. Silkworm disease. It looks, actually, this looks like a pretty hefty scientific book. She details the contention between them and presents ample references to the original source material and supporting evidence. No claim is left undocumented or unsupported. Both authors are clearly not fans of Pasteur or his corruption of the principles of science, and they declare their intentions openly. They seek to undo a massive medical and scientific fraud. The new edition of their work is presented with the same intent. You know, the truth will set us free, guys. One last thing. I was so happy I went to the biohacking conference, Dave Asprey's biohacking conference, which is, you know, his podcast was the first one that taught me about Saccharomyces boulardii years ago. Wow. If I hadn't heard about that, I don't know if I hadn't found that podcast, I'm not sure my son would be so, and I would be doing so well now. And the sad thing is maybe from my toxic mold poisoning last year, I got sick. I didn't sleep enough, 3 nights of not right sleep, red eye flights, that was kind of stupid, Deb. But at the conference, I was the only one hacking. I was so sick. I was coughing and coughing. I was a volunteer at the conference. And I made jokes about, wow, I'm the only one hacking here. I thought this was a hacking conference. And the funny thing is nobody, in a beautiful way, nobody cared. In a totally beautiful way. I didn't see one person grab hand sanitizer. I didn't see one person throw on a mask and run away from me. It was beautiful. You know what I did have are people coming up to me and offering me hydrogen, ivermectin, offering me a massage. And I went and sought the sun. I went and laid in the sun outside. I walked outside. I did all my best self-help things I could. So guys, let's take this message. Let's take it from a place of empowerment, of design thinking, and growing our organic gardens stronger together. Have a great day.